Hello, welcome to Adventures with Grandma Bonnie. And no, I'm not Rhodes Morgan, I'm Grandpa Ray. And today I'm going to join Grandma Bonnie to tell the story of Rhodes Morgan and the lost gold of the Arrowhead Mine. This story is based on facts, stories told by local residents and personal experience, and pure speculation. The Arrowhead Mine is located in Douglas County, Nevada, and the Humboldt Toiyabe National Forest, not far from Risue Canyon Road. Risue Canyon Road was once a wagon road built in the 1860s, leaving Antelope Valley and winding east to Desert Creek to connect up with what is now Route 338, the road to Esmeralda, and the boom towns of Bodie and Aurora. The first recorded mining activities of the Arrowhead location were in 1913. After many changes in ownership over the years, operations ceased at the Arrowhead in 1990. The owner abandoned the claim and boarded up the entrance to eliminate safety hazards.
Are you ready to search for the lost gold? Let's get started. Ray and I had heard many stories about Rhodes Morgan and the Arrowhead Mine over the years, and even had a first-hand encounter with him. One day in the 1980s, we were brave enough to explore the Arrowhead Mine. We easily found the entrance and went in only a few yards. It was dark and looked way too dangerous to proceed any further. He met us at the opening of the mine just as we were leaving. Oh, kind of frightened me. He looked just like the Old West character Gabby Hayes. That's an Old West character. Right down to the full beard and 6-shooter on his gun belt. 6-shooter, oh, we're talking business here. With his hands placed over the revolvers, he told us that he was the caretaker of the mine and no one was allowed to enter. I might add, he was very serious. We politely answered that we were just curious about the old mine and would respect his request. Thinking it wise, I offered him a bottle of water and an apple and told him we would be moving along and head on home. He shyly accepted our offer and let us pass. It was a little scary, to tell you the truth. He lived in a small cabin just off Risue Canyon Road, tucked back in the willows alongside a fresh mountain stream. Apparently, he lived there with his wife for many years. Unfortunately, we never saw her and was told she had died. No record of her death could be found. She is probably buried somewhere near the remote cabin, maybe near that spring. There was a lot of grass and little wildflowers. That would have been a nice place. He was seen occasionally at the general store in town with his pack mule picking up supplies. About a year after our chance encounter with old Rhodes Morgan, we heard that he was found slumped against his cabin door as if asleep, but sadly he had died. It seemed he must have been peaceful and just drifted off to sleep. Just think, he was where he wanted to be, maybe. He claimed to be a relation of financier and investment banker J.P. Morgan. Despite all the stories and rumors There is no documented evidence that anyone in the J.P. Morgan family was ever involved. Eventually, the Forest Service came in and removed all evidence of his being there. Nothing was left but the spring and the small, bare plot of land. No one ever knew where all the gold may have gone, or if it was ever any gold at all. Did Rhodes Morgan hide it near his cabin? Was there a stash of gold dust buried under a rock? All that remains of the Arrowhead Mine today are a couple of corrugated metal-clad sheds and the remains of a stamp mill, almost obscured by the encroaching willows and sagebrush. Stamp mills were used to crush the ore excavated from the mine and were typically located near the mine. I once met an old cowboy in town while I was shopping at the local Walmart who claimed to have known him and heard many stories of his adventures with bears, coyotes, snakes, floods, and the Arrowhead Mine. These stories were shared by many cowboys around campfires out on the range over the years. Like all stories told over and over, the details may have been highly exaggerated. The lure of lost gold from a mine in the local mountains remained. Years later, Ken Fernley, a professor of geology working at the University of Nevada in Reno, heard the story of Rhodes Morgan and the lost gold mine in Risue Canyon. The mystery had not been solved. Maybe it never would be, but Professor Fernley's spirit of adventure was piqued. He knew it would take some resources to outfit a crew with the necessary supplies and equipment. It would take time and money. Since the abandoned claim was on government property, no one could profit from anything they might find. Would that make you, if you found something, would that make you think maybe you won't tell? Will that be honest? While soliciting help to fund his adventure, he left out the fact that he had a map not many knew about. The map had been found many years before by a local ranch hand. The cowboy often rode the high country in search of lost cattle that had wandered off the nearby ranch. As he was slowly riding along a shallow part of the Walker River, he spotted something that looked like a beat-up tin pan reflecting in the sunlight. He reached down and picked up the pan and quickly realized it was an old prospector's gold pan. Whoa, that'd be fun to find, wouldn't it? What caught his eye were the tiny flakes of gold dust swirling around in it. Ooh, see the sand and the water? How exciting. Excited that he had found a few flakes of gold, the cowboy jumped on his horse, eager to get back to the ranch house and share his adventure. When he arrived at the ranch, he reached back and pulled the old pan out of his saddlebag to take a closer look. There was something scratched on the bottom, faded and hard to read due to the years of exposure to the water and sand. He could barely make out what appeared to be a map. He recognized a road and a small lake along with other details. After all, that was his backyard, so to speak. The old cowboy's eyes weren't very good without his glasses, but he could see the initials RM were very neatly carved into the thin tin. Well, that did it, because the cowboy had heard the many stories of Rhodes Morgan and the Arrowhead Mine. Rhodes Morgan, RM, you get it? He was convinced he had found a map to the long-lost mine. Wow, he must have really been excited. Was the mystery about to be solved? Oh boy. As the cowboy dismounted in front of the bunkhouse, he realized that he might have found something very valuable. In his excitement, the cowboy almost lost his footing and tripped, spilling all his gold flakes into the dirt. Aw. Knowing how the cowboys on the ranch liked to talk and share stories, he decided to keep his find a secret until he could better decide just what to do with the map. Oh, what would you do? What would you do? You want to tell somebody, though. One morning, while sipping his coffee, he read an article in a local newspaper about a professor at UNR, that's the university, who was searching for information regarding the Arrowhead Mine near Topaz Lake. Well, he had some information, didn't he? He jumped out of his chair and knew just what he would do with his secret map. And so the adventure began.
Professor Fernley secured the funds needed to search for the lost gold of the Arrowhead Mine. After many years of investigating the stories of the missing gold, his supporters gladly backed the professor and his quest. He quickly gathered the necessary equipment, supplies, and a few undergraduates that shared his spirit of adventure. Rachel, one of the undergraduates on the team, was thrilled to share his passion. Not only was she a top geologist, but she also had a crush on the professor. Over the years, other explorers had found the old structures and the mine shaft, but nothing ever came of it. Disappointed that gold was never found, it was written off as just another abandoned mine shaft dug into the side of a hill. What they didn't know was that the map revealed another, smaller tunnel that veered off from a shaft and led to a small cavern.
The professor and his crew traveled most of the day in their four-wheel drive Jeep. Outfitted for almost any kind of terrain, a lift kit, tough tires, and skid plates to prevent undercarriage damage from any large rocks. You need those to go back there in that country. The Jeep was packed with all sorts of camping supplies and extra water. Extra water is always wise to take. They also brought along cave exploration equipment, lights, ropes, GPS devices, two-way radios, and mapping equipment. Wow, they were outfitted. Following the map carefully, they had no problem finding Topaz Lane, the turn onto East Side Lane, and the fork in the road and onto Risue Canyon Road. After an hour or so, they found the very spot they believed to be where Rhodes Morgan's cabin had been. The canyon narrowed at this spot, and the spring water crossed the road and disappeared into the dense willows. I bet that was a beautiful scene, though. It was like a meadow. I happen to know that cattle went up there a lot of times from the ranch and loved to drink that fresh spring water. Also growing among the brush and willows were berry vines, adding the element of danger to their search. The berries were the favorite snack for local bears. This was serious. You had to not bother the local bears. After a short hike through the dense willows, they soon came across the remains of an old stamp mill.
The mine entrance must be very close by.
It was getting dark, and they decided to head back and set up their campsite. The four sat around the campfire that night, planning the next day's exploration in the hope of finding gold. I wonder if they even slept that night with all that excitement. Early the next morning, the group gathered their cave exploration gear and headed down the trail to the stamp mill. After arriving at the site of the stamp mill, they split up to search for the mine entrance. Keeping in constant contact with each other by radio was crucial. The willows and underbrush was so dense that they lost sight of each other in a few feet. Can you imagine? That had to have been just like lost in the jungle, but it was dried, kind of bushy. Within a few minutes, Rachel said over the radio, "There it is! I found it!" Using GPS, they all converged on the site of the metal sheds that concealed the entrance to what they believed to be the Arrowhead Mine. Again, carefully following the details of the map, they found the map to be extremely accurate. They all turned on their pencil LED headlamps and headed into the mine. The Arrowhead Mine, like most mines, is a complicated maze of horizontal tunnels tied together with near vertical shafts. Oh, can you imagine that? How scary that must be. Without proper lights, navigating through the mine is very dangerous. And who knows what's in those shafts, too. Once inside the mine, they proceeded with extreme caution. The mine could also be a great hiding place for snakes, mountain lions, and bears. Following the details of the map, they wound their way through the maze of tunnels and shafts. I wonder how long that was. Just as the crude but detailed map revealed, they found themselves at what appeared to be a dead end. Searching around using the lights from their headlamps, boy, what would they do without those? They found a small opening concealed behind some timbers. They carefully crawled into the opening. The short tunnel opened into a small cavern. As they shined their lights around the room, a vein of quartz sparkled among the other rocks. Geologists knew that gold was most often found embedded in quartz deposits. On closer inspection, the quartz vein held a few small flakes of gold. It was obvious that someone had been working the vein for some time and had removed the larger pieces of precious gold-bearing quartz. This must be the source of the gold that was thought to originate in the Arrowhead Mine. As the group made their way back to camp, the professor explained to the others that his research had revealed that no gold was ever reported to have been taken from this claim. While they were convinced this was the source, the location of the lost gold was still a mystery. Was Rhodes Morgan the one working the mine those many years ago? Did he stash the gold somewhere? Professor Fernley and his crew still had to unravel the mystery. The adventures continue. This was a story based on facts and something we experienced when we lived up in the high country of the Sierras. I wish everyone could have experienced that open country, and maybe someday you will, when you are able to get up there to see the Eastern Sierras. Please enjoy it. And maybe you too will look and see a digging someplace and remember that maybe it was an abandoned mine. Be safe out there. Enjoy your day. And please follow me on Adventures with Grandma Bonnie. Thumbs up, like, and please watch the whole thing and subscribe. We love to hear from you. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye now.